Fast food is terrible for your health. There's no denying that whatsoever. Video games, to a much lesser extent, can be detrimental too. One causes obesity, health disease, and diabetes, while the other just requires you to sit and not really move for a while, which you shouldn't do for 16-hour periods. Now, I'm not trying to give health advice, because really, I'm not qualified to, and ultimately, this is a channel about video games. However, something must be said about combining the two. So when McDonald's releases a video game, in this case 1992's Global Gladiators on the Sega Game Gear, there is irony to be had. But it's important that we don't feed into the marketing. A big virtual advert for a multinational corporation that deals in fat and grease. It shouldn't be abided by. Don't be a corporate shill. Today's adventure starts in your friendly neighborhood restaurant where best of friends, Mick and Mac, are glossing over a comic book about the global gladiators. As they are revering their heroes, bam! Ronald McDonald out of nowhere. And do you know what this creepy old clown then does? Well, nothing is actually shown, but it's implied that he shrinks and sucks them into the comic book. No ball pit for Mick and Mac. The game overall sports a strong environmental message. I guess they must feel bad about the decades of styrofoam containers, as the four worlds are full of enemies to destroy who are involved in pollution, logging, and melting ice caps. These four worlds are called Slime World, Mystical Forest, Toxie Town, and Arctic World, which, of course, are naturally all trademarked. While you're visiting these locales, the goal is to collect archers, also trademark, and destroy such villains as Jack, Goober, and Yuckmouth. To do this, you use a super soaker-like weapon called the Goo Shooter, which oddly isn't trademarked at all, so go for your life in using that. It should be noted that you are somewhat under the pump as you play. There is a time limit to worry about, along with all the gross things destroying the environment. Luckily, it's not mandatory to collect every single arch, trademark, but if you collect more than the bare minimum, there are bonus rounds where the aim is to recycle and sort as much trash falling from the sky as possible before too much lands on the ground. The controls are a bit slippery, as is the jumping. Fortunately, you can look up and down before you jump. This is handy since the game has a small gameplay area and will try its best to get you to jump into an early grave. Additionally, you can run, but I wouldn't advise it. You're too likely to run off a ledge or into an enemy. Even though you are being timed, the trade-off of extra speed is rarely worth it. The physics do feel okay for the most part, but they're floaty enough that navigating some of the smaller ledges can be a bit trying. I'm sure the Game Gear's less than stellar D-pad doesn't help things either. The enemies are quite varied in what they do and how they act, but you'll soon notice that each world includes all the same enemies with just different skins. And apart from the graphics, the levels don't change how they are played either. Slime World, trademark, does include platforms that will boost your jumps, but otherwise there's nothing else worth noting. Although it does make you wonder why Slime World, trademark, only includes those. It was the first level after all. Traditionally, new gameplay mechanics are introduced as you progress. I don't know why these are just at the start and nowhere else when nothing else is introduced later on, but I won't dedicate too much of my headspace to the subject. The only other thing to note is that there are invisible platforms to find if you're keen to find more archers, trademark, but these are not compulsory. I found it cool that either Mick or Mac's health status is represented by their facial expressions, but overall, the game is lenient when it comes to health and progression. Continue arrows are scattered about in a uniform manner, and these act as checkpoints if you can find them. Additionally, there are health and clocks which increase health and time, but if you die, the enemies you've already destroyed don't respawn, and the countdown timer even resets. This does make it a bit too easy to get through the levels, but I guess it is a kid's game. What could potentially make this game challenging is the fact that there are no save states. Forget a cartridge save, Global Gladiators doesn't even include a password system. What it does have, however, are cheats. Yes, controversial. You could make a challenge out of Global Gladiators by playing through it in one session and racking up a high score, but for the rest of us who don't really care about how many archers trademark we collect, it is very easy to input the level select cheat and use that as a counterfeit save system. I for one played this over 2 days because I'm an adult and don't have the time to beat a McDonald's game in a single session, and I'm really glad I didn't. Spoiler alert, but this is what you get for beating the game. Yep, that's it. A single splash screen and queue menu. Nice McDonald's, nice. Global Gladiators may be more familiar to you on the Genesis, Master System or Amiga, because this Game Gear version never made it to North America. Supposedly, SNES and Game Boy versions were also in the works, but I guess they didn't sell enough Royales with cheese that year because they never made it to market. There do appear to be unfinished ROMs of both floating around the web, but from what I can gather, they're mostly incomplete and unplayable. And yes, for those playing at home, Mick and Mac do appear in another McDonald's game called MC Kids, also by Virgin Games, but it's mostly unrelated gameplay wise. So, can I recommend Global Gladiators on the Game Gear? Well, gameplay wise, it's not dreadful, but it is a bit forgettable. Although I doubt it would be played very much if it wasn't for the McDonald's connection, although it's probably not played that much as it is. If you're really keen, the Genesis version is probably the way to go, since it obviously sports better graphics, sound, and gameplay. It's also quite cheap and accessible.